I think the next, our first speaker today is Boye Ademola. Boye is a partner and head of our financial service technology at KPMG. Boye will be discussing the topic, digital by value. Can you please join me in welcoming Boye Ademola?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm going to spend a few minutes this morning just sharing two major thoughts with you. The first one, I will speak to our own thoughts and perspectives on the fintech opportunities in Nigeria. And then in the second part of my presentation, I would focus on how we drive value out of fintechs and fintech investments. So the first fintech theme that we believe will shape this market, if we take a 5-year perspective, is blockchain. And a lot of people are asking, what is blockchain? Blockchain essentially is a technology. It has relevance to us, particularly because of its digital currency elements. So there are many digital currencies, and many of us will have heard of Bitcoin, but there are other digital currencies. But essentially what blockchain does and how it relates to Nigeria is in two perspectives. One is because of our diaspora population. Nigeria has the leading diaspora population in Africa. So the estimate is about $21 billion is remitted to Nigeria via Nigerians in diaspora every year, and that's growing. So those remittances, blockchain can influence those remittances, in fact, completely redefine it by ensuring that those transactions are more efficient and the transaction costs come down. The other reason that blockchain is important is because of the challenges we have today with regards to sourcing FX. And so you'll find that people are beginning to look at digital currency in making cross-border payments. So I'm aware of people, for instance, that are paying school fees of their children using Bitcoin. So the first fintech theme that we believe will shape and have an impact on the FS sector in Nigeria over the next 5 years is blockchain. The second one is payments. And we've made significant progress in payments. But the challenge with where we are today in payments is around financial inclusion. Still, we have a huge population that is not financially included. So BVN data suggests now that we're about 50 million people banked, and that's a lot of progress. But we're a population of 170 million people. Estimates again are that you should have over 100 million people, all right, in that former financial system. Our prognosis is going forward, we should see a lot of focus of payments that enable financial inclusion. And if you see what's happened recently with USSD, there is potential, we believe, if you look at that USSD, I call it a quiet revolution that is starting to address this question, or other fintech opportunities. What is important is that, look, the payments, we've been very successful. We've done instant payments, and that's important. Many clients, including the US, are still struggling with this. And we've made progress. But the financial inclusion question is going to be what we're going to focus on cracking. And we believe that over the next 5 years, we'll crack it. The other thing that we'll see on payments is customer experience, payments that enrich customer experience, recurring payments. We believe that these things will define what we're going to see in the next wave of payment solutions. So the second fintech theme that we believe will shape this sector is payments. The third one is insurance. And again, when we talk about financial inclusion, we're talking largely we talk about the banks and those that are not banked. But if you take an insurance perspective, the data is even worse. The number of people, the penetration of insurance in this market and in our country is quite low. And there's a huge opportunity. There's a huge opportunity to digitize the whole spectrum, the whole process, from onboarding people, premiums, claims, the whole insurance process. So, in fact, if you look at many of the global reports around fintech, there's a sense and a sort of knowing that the opportunity here is even bigger than in banking. And I think that's part of what we're going to try and sort of get into as we go on today. We'll be listening to an insurtech. So fintechs focused on insurance, we call them insurtechs. So that's insurance. That's the third fintech theme that we believe will shape our market. The fourth one is retail and micro lending. And when you talk about retail and micro lending, take a look at 50 million people with bank accounts and ask how many of them have loans. It's a minuscule number. And therein lies a big opportunity. And then, again, financial institutions will say, oh, but, we have issues, NPLs, the whole work and all that. Well, that's the digital agenda. How do you do this in a digital way? Take, for instance, the telco. How many of us have heard of airtime vents, lending via airtime? How many of us have heard of that? Okay, many of us don't do that. We have people in the room that you don't need to. In fact, many of us are doing postpaid. But I can tell you there are many millions of Nigerians that do that. And why do they do that? Because that's lending. Why do they do it? They do it because they need short-term loans. Again, a lot of this is retail and is micro. And we believe there's a big opportunity using analytics, ensuring that the whole spectrum is digitized. The rating, the profiling of the customer, the whole process is digital. We think and we believe that, from our own perspective, there's a significant opportunity here in retail and micro lending. And guess what? What we also see, and these trends are global, is that, look, if the financial institutions will step in, then the fintech businesses will step in. The telcos will step in. And in fact, you will have tech companies, PayPal, Amazon, all sorts getting into the lending space. For us, this is something that we believe in the next 5 years, we're going to see the fintechs make a significant impact on retail and micro lending. The last one is wealth management. So the fifth one, wealth management. And up until now, wealth management in Nigeria has been focused on the HNIs. Some people say it's the ultra HNIs. For good reasons. Because who's going to follow up 1,000 retail people? But that's the wealth management proposition. That process now, it's called robo-advisory. It's completely digitized. And, in fact, if you look at this year alone, the fintechs that have attracted the largest investment, like Glue.com in China, attracted a $1.2 billion investment. Billion, not million. A fintech attracting a $1.2 billion investment. And what do they do in Glue.com? They do robo-advisory. They do wealth management. So wealth management is going to be really big. So this speaks to the mass affluent, banked but underserved. And we believe that, this is very important. If you look at where we are in terms of our population and the people that have moved into the middle and the upper middle class, this is an opportunity, waiting, for an organization that is bullish enough and sees the opportunity to take it. So we believe these 5 fintech theme areas will shape FS over the next 5 years. I want to share with you something that I think is important. So this speaks to your business case and where you want to pitch as an organization. But in my next section, I want to speak about value. Because again, we're working with clients who are part of this industry, and sometimes we don't always get value out of this investment. There may be some people who are skeptical about this whole fintech play in the room. So I want to speak to where value is, the source of value, And as you look at your fintech play, what are the things that you need to consider? What are the things that you need to keep in mind and keep in view as you make those decisions? The first one is UX UI. And UX UI, by UX UI, we mean user experience and user interface. User experience is extremely important in the digital play. It always strikes a significant blow for the brand. In fact, it's UX that drives user adoption. And user adoption drives advocacy. If you have a solution that people advocate, they do free publicity for you, it addresses your growth agenda, you are well on your way. One of the important things in your fintech play is ensuring that there's sufficient understanding and focus on UX UI. You're building capabilities that allow you to focus on solutions that are attractive, intuitive, simple, consistent, and responsive. Behind this is technology. But look, what the customer sees is the UI. It's the user experience and interface. So the point here is that these things have to happen by design, not by default. The second one is digital enablement. So for you to have fantastic customer experience or user experience, behind it, you have to be digitally enabled. And again, this is where a lot of organizations have lost value. So you make an investment that essentially cannot integrate with your landscape. It's important to know that, look, technology does not exist in isolation. The fintech solutions will not exist in isolation. Even if it's not from a financial service institution, you will find that your fintech solution, even if you're a fintech business, will still require some integration and collaboration in the industry. How many of us will use Uber? How many people? Just let me see a show of hands. Excellent. Google Maps, anyone? Excellent. And I want to use this as an example when you're talking about digital enablement. Uber has built $1 billion business, billions of dollars, their market valuation now. But guess what? They do not have a location map service. Uber simply calls another application, another business that has a location map service. So for instance, when you go to Uber, the app, and you make a call for a cab, what Uber is calling is Google Map. In fact, if you look at the interface, you will see that they are almost the same. Or you may call another location service provider. We call that integration. In fact, we are in an API world, the tech people say, meaning you need solutions that can integrate across different systems and networks. Essentially, what they're doing is exchanging information, because what Uber needs is information on location, on your routes, and the likes that Google Map provides. Another thing that drives value in fintech investments is analytics. And there are levels of analytics. One play in analytics that is at the top of the value chain is prescriptive analytics. So analytics can be descriptive, it can be diagnostic, but at the top of it is when it's predictive, better still when it's prescriptive. Like again, when you use your Google Maps, and it can tell you in real time that, look, there's now a traffic problem here, you should take this route. Cloud is extremely important. These applications that I'm talking about, the Uber and the Google Map, they're in the cloud. And that helps to scale the application. If it's not in the cloud, if a fintech solution is not in the cloud, then it must have really good reasons for that. And possibly you need a roadmap of how to get it into the cloud. Cloud allows us to scale. I've used Uber, for instance, in 4 different countries. The experience is the same. So how can you scale a really small organization and become a global organization? That's the cloud proposition. Cybersecurity is extremely important to digital enablement. Without cybersecurity, there is no trust. In fact, it can bring the whole customer experience to a standstill. And therefore, focusing on security, on identity and access management, on monitoring and response, on zero-day vulnerability is extremely important, and ensuring that as you make your fintech investments, you consider cyber. Resilience is important. Resilience just speaks to your solutions being available all the time, from anywhere. And that's really what you get in the examples I was telling you about. Whether you are out of Nigeria or you are in Nigeria, you can use the solution. The fintech solutions that we speak about must be digitally enabled. You must ask these questions of your organization as you make your play. Am I digitally enabled? Are we going to have integration issues in this journey we're going? And what are we doing to deal those? Another very important value driver when you look at fintechs is an innovation DNA. Innovation is at the heart of the fintech play. And ensuring that we build organizations that seek to embed a culture of innovation is extremely important. Openness to new ideas, a willingness to collaborate. Like I said, if you have a fintech, say for instance, a fintech is not focused on banks. I don't want to be acquired by a bank. I want to be a fintech business. You still have to collaborate. If you are doing lending, you are interested in getting information from credit registry. You are interested in being connected to BVN at NIBS. So collaboration is extremely important. I question some of the paradigms that we've seen where people want to go alone. In this fintech business, the key is collaboration. If you look at all sorts of fintech companies that are making significant progress, you will find that, look, it's an ecosystem play. It's important to have that innovative mindset and to be open to collaboration. Finally, as I close, one of the opportunities that we see clearly is, look, how can we make Nigeria a global fintech hub? There are today leading hubs from a fintech perspective. If you ask our own perspective in KPMG, we believe we're well on the way. As we planned for the summit, we started looking at fintech investments in Africa, and we found that over the last 2 years, Nigeria led the pack, interestingly. And many times we don't get credit for these things. So the fintechs in Nigeria got over $200 million in investments over the last 2 years, leading the pack, followed by Egypt and then South Africa. This is very important, and it tells us that something has started. The key question then is, what do we need to do to land us as a leading fintech destination? I believe there are two things, apart from stakeholders, that there are two players that are extremely important: the regulators and government. And the regulators, particularly to help with enabling regulation. There are certain fintech themes that are seemingly controversial, like blockchain. But really what we need to do as regulators is seek to understand this, is look at what's going on in other climes, and then we bring regulation that helps the development of these technologies and the fintechs. The other part, or the other stakeholder that I think are really important, is government. Government is important. We did also a comparative benchmark and looking at the leading fintech hubs globally: the UK, the US, Israel, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong. All of them, we found something that was consistent: government incentives, ensuring that there is a plan for the fintechs, understanding that the fintechs, they bring value to society, development to the nation, incentives like having fintech parks, incentives on infrastructure, incentives in education. And I think what we'll see from a state like Lagos State is that, they're obviously thinking in that line. And we know Lagos is involved recently in Code Lagos, some initiatives. Many of us know about what Lagos is trying to do with Yaba. So that's important for government. And to support the fintechs, they're still fragile. There's a lot of nurturing that is required. But we believe that, look, once the incentives and the regulation are right, we will see significant traction. This will bring significant investments. In closing, I want to say, for instance, if I talk about investments, as we planned this call, we got calls from venture capitalists out of Nigeria saying, look, they wanted to be part of this event. They want to invest in Nigeria. Financial inclusion is big for them. So fintechs do drive investment. And what I think is important is just ensuring that we're also doing the right things to create an enabling environment. Thank you.